Let me be clear, I didn't throw that party to impress anyone. I just wanted one afternoon that was about my son and me. Something calm, warm, personal. I planned the whole thing myself, made a checklist, ordered the food, bought the decorations. I even cleaned the apartment top to bottom, scrubbed out the smell of burnt popcorn and gym socks. Because my dad, stepmum's idea of a man refuses to stop microwaving old leftovers. I picked out soft blues, some animal-themed stuff, nothing wild, just simple and sweet. I hung string lights while balancing on a step stool, 35 weeks into this pregnancy. No one offered to help. Samantha, my older sister, was busy finalizing her Stanford application. My dad was watching golf. My stepmum was reorganizing her nail polish. Still, I figured for once maybe they'd be happy for me. That maybe they'd actually show up for something I built. And for about 20 minutes it felt that way. Cousin Dave brought a plush octopus. My friend Luke came with organic baby lotion and a 6-pack of sparkling juice. There were smiles, laughter. The music I curated played gently in the background, low-key acoustic tracks I imagined playing while my son sleeps on my chest. Then Samantha walked in. Not just walked in, she arrived like royalty. My dad stood up, cleared his throat like he was giving a TED talk, and said, "Everyone, before we cut the cake, a quick announcement." Samantha was grinning like she already won something. "I got in," she said. "Stanford. Full ride." Applause. Cheers. Whooping. Someone shouted, "Oh my God, Sam, you're a genius." Cough, same person who just said my diaper cake centerpiece was kinda cute. In about 5 minutes, my baby shower turned into a damn college acceptance celebration. The playlist? Cut off and replaced with bass-heavy trap music. The snack table? Rebranded as Sam's Congrats Station. The cake? Ignored. Then came the high school friends. Not mine, hers. Loud, messy, half of them still wearing backpacks. One literally had a Bluetooth speaker in her hand, like she was DJing Coachella. I sat on the couch, holding a mug of ginger tea someone handed me out of pity, still wearing my dad-to-be sash. The gifts got shoved off the table to make room for soda bottles and chip bags. Someone knocked over the punch and barely blinked. I watched my cake get shoved to the corner of the counter. I watched frosting get smeared onto my table, onto my floors. I got down on my hands and knees, 35 weeks pregnant, and started cleaning it with paper napkins. And while I was kneeling, literally scrubbing the floor, someone stepped over me to hug Samantha. Didn't even say, "Excuse me." That was the moment something inside me stopped making excuses. I didn't lose it. Didn't scream. Didn't flip the table or storm out mid-song when Samantha's friend started freestyle, rapping about Ivy League dreams in my living room. Instead, I just quietly picked up the cake knife no one had touched, walked to the kitchen, and started rinsing it under the faucet. The sink was full half-eaten wings, crumpled napkins, someone's discarded plate with barbecue sauce, smeared like a Jackson Pollock. I cleared a small space and kept moving. Because if I stopped to think, really think, I'd probably burn the whole place down. I didn't even make it to dessert in my own party. Instead, I stood there wiping down plastic trays, my back aching, my unborn son squirming inside me like he could feel the tension. Like even he was thinking, "What the hell are we doing here, Dad?" Later that night, I couldn't sleep. My apartment smelled like stale soda and disappointment. Samantha and her fan club were still laughing in the living room, probably ranking dorm preferences. My stepmom was bragging about how early they got her SAT tutors. My dad chimed in about their strategic planning like it was a team sport, and no one had asked me not once how I was feeling. Not about the pregnancy. Not about the business. Not even about the party they hijacked and left looking like a busted college mixer. I sat in my room, the only light coming from the screen of my phone. See, what they didn't realise was I'd already been preparing for this. Not the party, not the sabotage, but something deeper, bigger. I'd been researching tenant laws, housing rights, property ownership. Not because I expected to need it right away, but because somewhere deep down, I think I always knew this wasn't going to last. They thought they lived here. That just because I let them move in when I bought the place, it somehow belonged to them. My dad even joked once we should throw a housewarming party, and my stepmom called it our family home. No, I paid for this apartment, every square foot, every outlet and light fixture. I'd been running a handmade goods shop for 3 years now. Nothing flashy woodwork, baby mobiles, eco-friendly toys, but it paid the bills, paid their groceries, paid for Samantha's last-minute AP test prep when she forgot the deadline, paid the water bill while my stepmom took 20-minute lavender bubble baths. And what did I get? A hijacked baby shower and a front row seat to a future where I was just the guy who made things easy for them. So I opened the folder I'd been quietly building on my phone, labelled Exit Strategy. Inside, scanned deed, proof of ownership, art receipts, copies of utility payments in my name. A template for a legal eviction notice, courtesy of a lawyer friend I helped with a custom nursery set for his twins. I wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a tantrum. This was preparation. You can't build peace if the people living in your house treat you like a doormat with a wallet. The next morning, while they all slept in, probably dreaming of frat parties and bragging rights, I printed the notices. 3 copies, each one with their name in bold: Samantha Keller, Thomas Keller, Bethany Keller, all courtesy copies. The certified ones had already been mailed. I double-checked the tracking numbers. Then I sat at the kitchen table and placed the notices where I knew they'd find them, front and centre. Next to the coffee pot, I poured myself a mug of chamomile and waited. At exactly 7:04 a.m., I heard the floorboards creak. My dad shuffled in first, hair a mess, blinking against the kitchen light. He grabbed the top sheet, squinted, then stopped cold. "What is this?" I didn't even look up. "Ethan?" he said, voice rising. "Is this a joke?" My stepmom was next, wearing her silk robe and confusion. She grabbed the second copy and made a sound something between a scoff and a cough. "Eviction notice? Are you serious right now? We're family." Samantha arrived last, still in her Stanford hoodie, rubbing her eyes. "Wait, what?" They all stood there, forming a little semicircle of disbelief. "You're kicking us out?" she asked, voice breaking like I'd told her her acceptance was revoked. "I'm taking my home back," I said simply. They exploded. My dad slammed a cabinet shut. "You're being irrational. This is your hormones talking." Bethany tried the guilt route. "After all we've done for you, let us stay through the birth at least. Think about the baby." Funny how they suddenly cared about the baby now that their free ride had an expiration date. Samantha stepped forward like she was going to argue the law with me. "It was one party, Ethan, one. You're acting like I ruined your life." "No," I said calmly. "You just made it very clear where I stood in yours." They started shouting again, overlapping voices, the volume rising like a fire alarm. I just picked up my tea and walked back to my room. In the following days, they tried every tactic in the book. My dad offered to start pitching in. Bethany baked muffins and left them on my desk like it would cancel a decade of emotional neglect. "Samantha?" She tried the scholarship angle. "If we move out right now, I can't focus. I might lose my spot." "Then lose it," I said. But Stanford was more important to you than my son. She didn't have a comeback, and then came the whispers. Aunt Jenna called, concerned. She hadn't spoken to me in 3 years, but now wanted to check on how I was feeling. Bethany must have activated the flying monkeys, spreading tales of my emotional instability and irrational decisions. Nice try. They even tried sabotaging my business. Someone sent an anonymous email to my online store's support contact, claiming I was mentally unfit to handle logistics and might need to be replaced. The phrasing? Word for word, identical to Bethany's Facebook post from 2 weeks ago, so I forwarded the message to my lawyer. No reply needed, just receipts. I stopped talking, stopped engaging. I let the paperwork and deadlines speak for me. I still made breakfast some mornings, still answered the door when deliveries came. But I was done pretending I owed them explanations for finally drawing a boundary. And slowly, the shift began. Day 16. A sheriff's deputy hand delivered the official court date. Day 21, Samantha started packing. Day 25. My dad finally stopped trying to guilt-trip me and just sat on the porch for hours, silent. Day 28, Bethany cried loud enough for the neighbours to hear. I didn't flinch. Day 30. The apartment was half empty. The silence, it wasn't sad. It was peaceful. I walked into the nursery, folded a tiny blue onesie, and placed it beside the crib. The place felt bigger, lighter, like for the first time since I bought it, the space was finally mine. And this time, no one was going to take it from me. Day 30. The morning felt different. Still, but not quiet in the oppressive way it used to be. This was the kind of stillness that comes after a storm, the kind where the air is clearer, sharper, like something heavy had finally lifted. I was sitting on the couch with my tea when I heard the bedroom doors creak open one by one. First my dad's, then Bethany's. Samantha was last. Of course she was. Always the grand entrance. They walked into the kitchen like they didn't know what day it was, which was funny considering they'd been counting down ever since the court notice landed in our mailbox. "You're not serious," my dad muttered, still in his robe. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Boxes were already stacked in the hallway. The certified letters had been received. The court date was on file. I even had a friend on standby with a van, just in case they tried to stall. Bethany sat down at the kitchen table like it was still hers. "This is cruel," she whispered, trying to play soft. "You're kicking your family out right before the baby comes." "No," I said. "I'm protecting my son from growing up in a house where his father is invisible." Samantha slammed her hand on the table. The stack of eviction notices fluttered to the floor. "You're overreacting," she shouted. "It was one damn party." I stood up slowly, calm, controlled. "You turned my baby shower into your college victory lap. You let strangers trash my house. I was 8 months pregnant and wiping frosting off the floor while you danced on the couch. That wasn't one party. That was every party you've ever thrown over my life." She opened her mouth like she was going to argue, then closed it again. She hated not having the last word. Bethany jumped in, her voice shrill now. "This isn't just your house, Ethan. We've lived here for almost a year. We've built a routine. Memories. You paid 0 rent you never offered. I covered groceries, water, heating, internet, all of it. And the only memory I have is being treated like the hired help." My dad finally stood up, arms out like he was running Family Mediation 101. "Let's not do this. We're just stressed. We can clean the place. Fix it. Make it right." I turned to face him fully. "No," I said. "You'll gaslight me like you always do. Pretend this is all an emotional overreaction, and then go back to acting like you live here rent-free, emotionally and literally." His jaw tightened. But he didn't say anything. He never really did when it mattered. Samantha's voice dropped into that fake soft tone she used when she wanted to manipulate the outcome. Ethan, come on. You're better than this. I laughed. Quiet, bitter, just once. No, Samantha. I've just finally decided I'm not going to be less so you can shine. She blinked. Hard. Bethany's chair scraped back against the tile. You think you're better than us now? She snapped. Because you sell wood trinkets and handmade mobiles. You think that makes you important. I don't need to be important to you, I said. Just not erased. They were stunned. I walked into the hallway, grabbed the folder from my desk drawer, the one with the receipts, the deed, the mailing confirmations, and laid it on the table like an exclamation mark. It's all legal, I said. I made sure. Samantha grabbed the folder and flung it across the room. Pages flew like snow. You're heartless, she hissed. No, I said, looking her dead in the eye. I'm finally protecting myself. Silence. But this time, it wasn't awkward. It was real. The silence that follows truth. That afternoon, the moving van showed up. Not mine, theirs. They didn't pack fast. They didn't pack neatly. It was mostly Samantha shouting and stomping, Bethany muttering about family values, and my dad sighing like I had betrayed him. By sunset, the apartment was half empty. I stood in the nursery doorway, watching the orange light stretch across the hardwood floors. It was the first time since the baby shower that the house didn't feel like a battlefield. Bethany left without saying goodbye. My dad gave me one look, a weird mix of disbelief and pride, regret. I didn't bother decoding it. Samantha was last. She stood in the doorway with her backpack slung over one shoulder like she was heading to class, not being evicted. You're lucky, she said. Without me here, there's no one left to blame. I smiled. Exactly. She rolled her eyes and slammed the door behind her. And just like that, I was alone. Not lonely, just alone. And free. I walked to the kitchen. The table was clean. No piles of unpaid bills. No college prep brochures. No noise. I poured myself a fresh cup of tea, leaned against the counter, and finally let my shoulders drop. The weight was gone. I didn't win an argument. I didn't scream louder. I just walked them out and kept the door closed. And for the first time in my life, no one called me selfish for doing it. The first few days were quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. It was the kind of silence you notice, like the absence of something loud, chaotic, or constantly disappointing. Like when you leave a city and your ears are still ringing from the traffic, even though it's already gone. At first, I caught myself waiting to hear Samantha's music, blaring through the wall, or Bethany's voice, complaining about the cheap paper towels. I even expected my dad to knock and ask, "Did we get any mail today?" as if it wasn't my name on every envelope. But the knocking never came. The walls stayed quiet, and my space, finally, stayed mine. For the first time in over a year, I could hear my own thoughts. Not that they were always peaceful. The guilt tried to sneak in, whispering lines they'd used for years. You're too sensitive. We're just family. You owe us for everything we've done. But every time the echo started, I had something new to answer with. No, I'm not overreacting. No, I don't owe anyone a free ride just because we share DNA. No, being born into the same house doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my sanity to keep everyone else comfortable. Day 4 after they left, the phone calls started. First, it was Uncle Drew, who hadn't reached out in 2 years, calling to say, "Hey, just checking in. Your dad seems really upset." Then it was my dad's friend Greg texting, "Heard there's drama. Want to talk?" Bethany had clearly launched her PR campaign. She spun it as emotional instability, probably layered with a dose of, "he's under pressure because of the baby." Subtle, classic, manipulative. I didn't respond. Day 7, I got a DM from one of Samantha's friends. Dude, what happened? Sam said you lost it at your own baby shower. I didn't even open the message, just blocked. Day 10, it escalated. My business partner pulled me aside during our weekly check-in. Hey, she said, voice low. I got a weird email. I knew before she showed me. Anonymous sender, poor grammar. Full of vague claims like Ethan may not be mentally fit to manage logistics right now. Maybe a leadership shift would be safer for the company. I didn't flinch. I already had a folder labeled sabotage attempts. I took a screenshot, logged the timestamp, cross-referenced the language with old posts from Bethany's Facebook page. Same phrasing, same tone. I forwarded it to my lawyer and moved on. No meltdown, no spiral. I was too busy prepping for the biggest shift in my life, my son. The nursery was finally finished. Soft blue walls, a handmade mobile shaped like tiny clouds and stars, a second-hand crib I'd refinished myself. Every detail was intentional, quiet, safe, mine. On day 16, the last certified letter came back, marked delivered. They hadn't contested anything in court, just left. And according to my lawyer, that was that. They were gone. Legally, permanently. The following week, I rearranged the living room, took down the Congrats, Sam, banner they'd left behind, which, hilariously, had been hanging crooked for a month. I replaced it with a canvas print of my first baby product photo, a wooden cloud lamp that had gone viral on Pinterest. It was the moment my business turned into a real thing. My turning point. Funny how full circle that felt. By day 30-piece didn't feel unfamiliar anymore. It felt earned. There were moments of doubt. Sure, moments where I stared at the ceiling at 2 a.m. and wondered, did I go too far? Was I cruel? Will my son grow up without knowing his extended family because I finally said no? But then I'd remember the way Bethany told me, we're doing you a favor while living rent-free. The time Samantha laughed at my baby name list like it was a joke. The silence I got when I told them I was having a child, like I'd announced a weather update instead of a life. And I knew I'd done the right thing. Not the easy thing, but the right one. Update. 4 years later, my son started preschool last month. His name's Mason. He wore a little green backpack shaped like a dinosaur and said he was going to teach everyone how to draw clouds. He's confident, curious, kind. He loves puzzles and peanut butter toast. He asks questions that stop me in my tracks like, Dad, do stars sleep? Or why don't chairs blink? He reminds me of me, but better, freer. He doesn't flinch when someone raises their voice. He doesn't apologize for asking to be seen. He doesn't clean up other people's messes just to keep the peace. And that alone makes every decision worth it. As for me, I still run the business. We scaled up last year, hired 2 part-time employees, streamlined production, and passed 6 figures in annual sales for the first time. I work fewer hours now. Take weekends off. I even started painting again, something I hadn't done since I was a teenager because, back then, my dad called it a waste of time. Funny how the things they dismissed are the things that saved me. We haven't spoken since they left. Not once. No holiday cards, no calls, no "we miss you," and I don't miss them either. From what I've heard, because relatives talk, especially when they think you'll care, Samantha dropped out after her first year. Turns out Stanford's hard when no one's cleaning up your life for you. My dad and Bethany moved in with my aunt, but that didn't last long. Apparently, she kicked them out after 6 months. Something about unpaid bills and toxic behavior. What can I say? Patterns follow people who refuse to change. Do I feel bad? Not really. Do I feel guilty? Not even a little. I gave them more chances than I gave myself. And when they kept choosing comfort over kindness, I finally stopped making excuses. They taught me something, though, not about love, not about family, but about boundaries and about how powerful it is to say no more. So, yeah, that's the story of how my baby shower turned into a frat party and how I turned the whole thing around without raising my voice. Some people say family is forever, but I say this, peace is better. And when you finally build a home that feels like yours, you'll fight to keep it safe, even if that means losing the people who were never really rooting for you in the first place. Story 2. So, I guess this is the part where I tell you how I ended up walking into a room full of black suits, fake tears, and family whispers at my own funeral. I'm Callie, 32. Former family disappointment, current ghost. It all started with a random video message from an old neighbour, Miss S. Langley, a sweet lady. Used to sneak me cinnamon cookies when my mum said I didn't deserve dessert. I hadn't heard from her in years, so I was more curious than cautious when I tapped on the video. And there it was. A church. A closed casket. My dad, red-eyed and trembling, reading a eulogy. Callie was complicated, he said, but she loved fiercely. A line of mourners filled the pews behind him. My mum dabbed at her face with a tissue. My sister, Ivy, sobbed like she'd just lost her best friend. Only one problem. I wasn't dead. I was sitting in my apartment, clutching a half-full coffee mug, watching my own funeral unfold on a phone screen. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, but I barely noticed. Because what I was watching wasn't grief. It was performance, perfectly timed, perfectly executed, and terrifyingly believable. I didn't even know what scared me more, that they'd faked my death or that no one questioned it. 3 years earlier, to understand why this wasn't just a bizarre mistake, you'd have to rewind to when things first cracked. Ivy, golden child, Instagram princess, professional manipulator, had accidentally transferred $80,000 from our family's event planning business to cover some credit card debt. Designer bags, rented yachts, overpriced cocktails. She said it was just a cash flow issue. My parents couldn't believe it. Not because she stole, but because they couldn't let anyone know she did. So they blamed me. Callie, the older sister. The quiet one, the one who worked the back-end systems and handled the invoices. Better a broken daughter than a criminal one. My mum had whispered that night in the kitchen, her voice cold enough to sting. You'll recover. She won't. My dad didn't say anything. He just walked away. That was the last real conversation I ever had with them. They made me disappear. I tried to fix it. Apologized for something I didn't do. Offered to explain. Nobody listened. They didn't just cut me off. They deleted me. Blocked my number. Ignored my emails. Even friends I'd grown up with stopped responding. My cousin unfollowed me a week after my mum posted a cryptic message about letting go of toxic ties. So I left. I packed my life into 2 suitcases, sold what little I had and moved abroad. Changed my number, got a boring job, kept my head down. For 3 years I stayed quiet. I barely posted anything online. I didn't use my real name. I didn't ask about them. But some nights, I still wondered if they ever thought about me. And then came the funeral video. Formally dead, the funeral wasn't just a symbolic thing. A few months back, I'd tried to reopen an old bank account. The system flagged me. I was deceased, not just forgotten. Legally dead. I contacted the registry office. There it was. Death certificate. Date. Time. Cause of death. Overseas auto accident. Closed casket. No remains. Except I'd never even owned a car in that country. I wasn't just cut off. I'd been erased. And now I knew why no one had called, emailed, or looked for me. Because in their minds, and more importantly, on paper, I didn't exist anymore. The question wasn't, how could they do this? It was why. So I started digging. My sister took everything. Ivy's Instagram had gone private for years. But recently, she resurfaced new last name, shiny new life. I scrolled through her wedding photos like I was sifting through someone else's dream. Every single face familiar. Family, friends, even that uncle who usually couldn't make it. All of them celebrating her, not a single trace of me. Then I saw it, my dad giving a toast at the reception, holding up a glass with that same performative pride I remembered from childhood. To the daughter who's always made us proud. And I cracked. She didn't just take my place, she took my life. The final straw, my trust fund, the one Grandma left me for college in my name. Transferred to Ivy 6 months after my death. I matched the documents, the dates, the forged signature. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't grief, it was theft. They didn't just erase me to mourn me. They erased me to cash me in. The morning after I watched my own funeral, I couldn't stop shaking. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the ceiling until the sun came up, like maybe daylight would make any of it make sense. It didn't. What kind of family kills you off on paper? What kind of people sit through a fake funeral and never flinch? I had so many questions and nowhere to put them. So I did what felt like the only thing left. I walked into a law office with every piece of my real life I could find. Passport stamps, housing contracts, tax returns, work history, all lined up like I was proving my own existence. The lawyer, young guy, maybe early 30s, flipped through the folder with a kind of slow disbelief. "You're not dead," he finally said, looking up. "I know," I said, deadpan. "But legally, I am." He nodded. "Well, we'll start with a fraud complaint, then work on reinstating your identity. But this isn't going to be quick." I didn't care. I had time, and a very specific kind of rage that keeps you upright when your whole world tips sideways. Right before I left, he looked at me like he wanted to say something comforting, but all he managed was, "I'm sorry this happened to you." I just nodded, because how do you even explain what it feels like to be buried alive by the people who raised you? The invitation that wasn't that same afternoon, I got a message. No name, no sender, just a sentence, memorial service. Sunday, Fulton Street Chapel. That was the same church from the video, same candles, same pews, same place my mum made me sing in the Christmas choir, while Ivy got to light the Advent candle. I stared at the message for a long time. Maybe it was bait. Maybe it was a mistake. Or maybe they were bold enough to hold another service without thinking I'd ever show up. Either way, I wasn't going to miss the chance to look them in the eye. If they wanted closure, I'd give it to them. The walk-in Sunday came like a slow storm. I wore black, not because I wanted to blend in, but because it felt symbolic. Let them wonder if the ghost had come to haunt them. The church was already packed when I got there. Rows of cars lined the street. People standing in little clumps, hugging and whispering like grief, was a performance they'd rehearsed. I waited outside until the last possible moment, then walked in through the front doors like I belonged there. Because I did, I always had, and they were the ones who forgot that. Inside, the air was thick with candle smoke and polite sadness. At the front, there it was again. My face, framed in silver, surrounded by lilies. That photo had been taken the day I got my first real job. I remember texting it to my mum. She never responded. Guess she saved it for the slideshow. I scanned the crowd. There she was, my mum. Front row, lace gloves, perfect posture, crying like she was getting paid for it. And Ivy? White dress, too much mascara, holding my dad's arm like she hadn't sold me out for a better seat at the table. I stood at the back for a second, letting them settle into the silence. The priest cleared his throat. If anyone would like to say a few final words, click. My heels on the tile, every head turned. Gasps, whispers. One guy dropped his program. I walked down the aisle, slow, steady, like it was a wedding, and I was the bride, and nobody knew I'd survived the fire. My mother's eyes widened. Ivy's mouth opened, but nothing came out. My dad looked like someone had punched the air out of him. When I reached the front, I stopped just beside my casket, and turned to face them all. "I'm not dead," I said, calm, clear, every word like a stone dropped in water, "but I'm done being invisible." You could have heard a pin drop. Someone's phone buzzed in the back. Nobody dared reach for it. I held up the folder I'd brought: documents, dates, receipts, photos. This is who I am. This is where I've been. This is proof. You didn't bury me. You tried to erase me. And I'm here to say you failed. The fallout begins. I didn't stay long after that. Didn't need to. Let them sit with it. Let them rewrite their own eulogies. As I walked past my mother, she reached out, reflex more than love. Her pearls snapped, slid through her fingers like water. I didn't stop, didn't flinch. Outside, the wind hit me hard, crisp, clean. The kind of air that feels like a reset. I went straight back to the lawyer's office. We filed every motion fraud, inheritance dispute, identity reinstatement, the works. And then I went home, lit a candle, took a shower, made tea. It was the first time in years I felt real, alive in my own skin. And even though I knew the legal battles would take months, maybe longer, I also knew something else. They could keep their lies. I had the truth, and it would be louder than any eulogy they could ever write. For a while, nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no knock on the door. Not even a dramatic voicemail from my mum, which honestly was surprising. She once left me 6 messages because I didn't say thank you fast enough after a birthday gift. But this time, silence. Almost like they thought if they ignored me long enough, I'd disappear again. But I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't the version of me they buried. I was the version who knew exactly what they did and had the paperwork to back it up. The quiet before the storm that next week, I kept my head down and let the legal wheels turn. My lawyer Nate, bless his quietly competent energy, filed everything with surgical precision. We submitted a fraud complaint, opened a case to reverse the death certificate, and initiated a trust fund freeze. I sent over everything. I had passport records, photos with timestamps, even rent receipts from the week I supposedly died. "It's airtight," Nate said one morning over the phone. "They're not just guilty of faking your death. They used it to move money." He paused for a second. "You sure you want to go all the way with this?" And I thought about that. I really did. I thought about forgiveness, about letting things go, about how tired I was of carrying all of it. But then I remembered Ivy's wedding post, "To new beginnings," and the caption under the photo of my dad raising a glass. "To the daughter who always made us proud." They didn't just move on, they rewrote the story and left me out of it. So yeah, I was going all the way. Digital ghosts and paper trails. I started going through everything I could find. Old emails, family group chats I'd been kicked from, bank statements, company records from the family business we'd all once worked in. It was all there. Not just Ivy siphoning money, but my parents covering for her, signing off on transfers, moving assets from my name to hers. A few accounts even listed me as deceased before my supposed death was made official. They didn't just lie, they planned it meticulously, months in the making. And that's when I found it buried in an old cloud drive I hadn't accessed in years. a digital will. One my grandmother had written before she passed. She'd split the inheritance between Ivy and me, with strict instructions for school and housing only, not to be touched for vanity. And guess what? Ivy bought a luxury condo 3 weeks after my death. She even posted about it. Hashtagged it, I swear, if karma had a face, it would have winced. The first crack a few days later, the whispers started. A cousin DM'd me on Instagram. Hey, I saw something online. Is it true? Then another message. Ivy told everyone you died. I didn't know what to believe. And then came the news alerts. Small articles at first, just whispers on finance blogs about a probate dispute and possible fraud charges. But then it hit the bigger networks. Local woman declared dead remerges, exposes family trust fraud. I didn't leak the story, but someone did. Maybe a clerk, maybe a reporter fishing court records. Either way, it spread, and my inbox lit up like a Christmas tree. Some people apologized. Others asked what really happened. I didn't respond to most of them, not because I was bitter, but because I didn't need their closure anymore. I already had mine. What mattered now was the truth, making sure it stuck. Rewriting the ending. The first court hearing was quiet. Ivy didn't show. My parents did, both of them looking like they hadn't slept. They didn't speak to me, just sat across the room, flipping through paperwork they never thought I'd get my hands on. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood. My name is Callie Everett, I said. I'm alive. And I have never at any point relinquished my rights or disappeared. I was erased, deliberately. For money, I felt my voice shaking a little, but I didn't stop. This isn't about revenge. It's about correction and closure and truth. The judge nodded, and that was it. No dramatic gasps, no shouting, just a quiet acknowledgement that the lie had ended and the record would be set straight. The last goodbye a week later, I walked by the chapel again. Same one where they staged my funeral. Only this time I wasn't there to haunt it. I just stood across the street, watching the windows flicker in the sunlight. No one was inside. The air was still. I took out the photo, they'd used the one from my first job, and looked at it for a long time. I wasn't that girl anymore. She thought love meant proving herself until people finally chose her. Now I knew love doesn't make you invisible. It doesn't require vanishing to be valid. And sometimes the most powerful goodbye doesn't happen in a courtroom or at a confrontation. Sometimes it's just not going back. The day my legal identity was officially restored, it rained. Not the dramatic thunderclap kind, just steady, soft rain, like the world was rinsing itself clean. Felt fitting. I stood in the lobby of the county records office with my reinstatement letter in hand, full name, active status, clean slate. The clerk gave me a small smile as she handed it over. "You're back," she said. I nodded. "Yeah, I guess one am," but the truth was, I'd never left. They tried to erase me. But I was always here, breathing, surviving, learning how to rebuild. Now I was finally visible again, on paper, in public, and most importantly to myself. Fallout and fake regrets word spread faster than I expected. It started with Ivy disappearing from social media. No more condo photos, no more boss babe reels, just gone. Then came the letters from my dad, 2 pages typed, said he didn't know the full extent of what Ivy had done, that he was misled. From my mum, handwritten, in script I hadn't seen since she used to sign birthday cards. Claimed she missed me every day. Said they thought they were protecting the family name. And Ivy? She sent nothing, not a word, not an apology, just silence, which honestly was more honest than anything she could have said. I didn't reply to any of them. Not because I wanted revenge, but because sometimes peace looks like a closed door you never open again. The money trail ends. The trust fund frozen. The assets under investigation. Turns out, when you fake someone's death to cash out inheritance, banks start asking uncomfortable questions. And when you forge signatures and lie under oath, it doesn't just go away with a few crocodile tears. My lawyer said they'll likely settle. Quietly, privately. The kind of agreement where no one admits guilt, but the money comes back anyway. I said that was fine. I didn't need their names in headlines. I just needed my life back. The new beginning, I moved to a coastal town a few hours away. Rented a little cottage with tall windows and creaky floors. The kind of place where mornings smell like salt and the world moves slower. I got a job teaching, writing, workshops at the community centre. Nothing fancy. But it feels right. Most mornings, I walk down to the shore with coffee in hand and sit by the rocks. Just me, the tide, and the space between what happened and what's next. People ask me if I ever think about going back. To the family. To the old life. The answer's simple. No. Because what they buried wasn't me. It was the version of me they could control. The one who apologized too fast, who made herself small so others could shine. That version's gone. And I don't mourn her. I thank her for surviving long enough for me to take over. Closure isn't always a conversation, I used to think. Closure was a moment, a dramatic confrontation, a sobbing apology, maybe a hug and some healing words. But now I know closure is quieter. It's the absence of the ache, the full breath in a room where no one's trying to rewrite your story, the steady heartbeat of a life that belongs entirely to you. I keep a framed copy of that reinstatement letter in my study, not as a reminder of what they did, but of what I reclaimed. My name, my history, my right to exist. One last story. There's this old photo I keep on my nightstand, not the one they used at the funeral, a different one. I'm sitting on the porch of my first apartment, barefoot, laughing. The light is golden. I remember that moment clearly. It was the first time I paid rent with my own money. I look at that photo sometimes and think, she had no idea what was coming. But she made it anyway. She got through the exile, the lies, the fake obituary. She lived. And now she's free. Final thought. If someone ever tries to bury you with lies, don't waste your breath proving you're alive. Just keep breathing, keep building, and one day the truth will walk in louder than any story they told. I didn't come back to haunt them. I came back to live. And that's the best kind of ending there is. Story 3, I thought I finally did something right. After years of chasing crumbs of approval from my dad, I thought this might be the moment he'd look at me and actually see me. Not as the screw-up or the sensitive one, but as someone worthy of respect, of pride. My name's Ethan. I'm 35, run a mid-sized design and development firm. And despite everything, I still wanted a relationship with my dad. Maybe not a close one, but one where I could at least stand in the same room without bracing for a backhanded compliment. So when he announced his retirement after 3.5 decades in real estate, I went big. The man had raved about this ridiculous spaceship-sounding luxury SUV for years, sleek, top tier, everything he ever wanted but too flashy for a real man to buy for himself, he'd always say. So I bought it, custom ordered, pearl black, leather, everything, panoramic roof, the works. I scheduled the delivery for the night of his retirement dinner. Whole family was there. Mum still playing referee decades after the divorce, my sister Ellie and her fiancé, his old co-workers, even a couple of distant cousins. I made sure the SUV would roll up with a red bow right as dessert hit the table. I rehearsed my little speech 100 times short, respectful, all about his work ethic and how I hoped he'd finally take some time for himself. I stood up, said my piece. People clapped. Then he stood up, raised his glass, looked right at me, and said, "Let's drink to my idiot son, who thinks buying me a car is going to make me respect him. That's rich." And he laughed. Like it was funny. Like I was funny. You know that pause at a family dinner when everyone's waiting to see how bad something is before they react? Yeah, it was that. Mum froze, wine glass half raised. Ellie blinked, didn't even flinch. His co-workers looked like they'd been punched in the gut by a ghost of their own fathers. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, quietly walked out, and called a tow truck. I didn't say a word to anyone. Just told the valet the SUV was mine again, handed him an extra $100 to keep his mouth shut, and went home. It was parked in my driveway by midnight, bow and all. It looked better there anyway. Next morning, my phone looked like it had been in a car crash, 20 missed calls from my dad, texts rolling in non-stop. The guilt trip started fast. This is theft. You're embarrassing yourself. That was a gift. Funny how it was never a gift until I took it back. By noon, Ellie showed up. No knock. Just walked in and said, "You're not going to believe what he's doing." She handed me her phone. It was our family group chat, Dad, Mom, Ellie, and 2 of our uncles. He'd sent a photo of the SUV in my driveway, captioned it, "Ethan just proved he doesn't care about family." That car was a gift. He's lucky I don't call the cops. Another message pinged in real time, "We need to talk," or "Things get ugly." I just stared at it. Ellie watched me like she was waiting for me to explode. "He followed the tow truck," she said quietly. "Waited at the restaurant. Watched it leave. He's been circling your house all night, said you stole his retirement gift." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "He's serious," she said. "He called Uncle David, told him you're unhinged, that you've always resented him, that you tried to humiliate him in front of everyone." I sat down. The room felt smaller. Then she dropped the real bomb. "He called your landlord, your office, even Mum's friend at the permit office." I looked up. "For what?" She hesitated. "He told her you're committing tax fraud." I stared at her. "He said your business is a front, that you're hiding income." And I knew right then that this wasn't about a car. This was about control. This was about taking me down. Because for 1 minute, I was the centre of attention and he couldn't stand it. What he didn't know, I'd been ready for this. I'd spent years documenting every shady move he made in real estate. Every sketchy email, every questionable invoice, every off-the-record bribe he hinted at but never outright admitted to. And I wasn't alone anymore. Ellie sat across from me, pale but focused. "He's not just pissed," she said. "He's planning something." I nodded. "Let him. Because the thing about narcissists, they always think they're the smartest one in the room. And mine was about to learn otherwise. I didn't go into the office that day. I couldn't focus. Just sat in the kitchen, coffee going cold, staring at that SUV like it was a monument to everything I used to want respect, recognition, maybe even a sliver of love. All of it, boxed up in leather seats and a red bow. I opened my laptop and clicked on a folder I never thought I'd need. Labelled simply, "Just in case." Inside were file scans of old contracts my dad used to draft. Ones I knew were doctored. Bank transfers between his name and shell companies. Voicemails where he joked about creative accounting. I'd been holding on to this stuff for years, like a life vest I prayed I'd never have to use. But the moment he went after my business, My reputation? That was the moment I stopped hoping he'd change and started preparing to bury the myth he built around himself. I called someone I hadn't talked to in a while, Sasha, an old friend from college. She runs a forensic accounting firm now, the kind of place that gets called when people say, "I think my business partner's stealing from me." We weren't super close anymore, but she always told me, if you ever need someone who knows how to clean up a mess. Well, I had a mess. I emailed her everything in that folder. She called me 15 minutes later, voice low but sharp. "Ethan, this isn't just messy. This is wear a tie to court messy." I asked her to draft a summary, a clean little package. Enough to get people's attention. Not for the police. Not yet. I wanted to squeeze. Not detonate. Just enough to make my dad sweat. To remind him he wasn't untouchable. I told her to send it to me first, but I already had the mailing list in my head, his old partners, the licensing board, the guys at the country club he loved to name drop. I promised Sasha a bonus if he tried to retaliate. Around 4, Ellie came back, phone in hand, scrolling like her life depended on it. "You need to see this," she said, holding it out. It wasn't the same group chat from earlier. This was smaller, just her, Mum and Dad, and it was worse. Mum had sent him old utility account numbers tied to my name, my business PO box, info I never shared with her, but she still had access to from years ago. It wasn't just loyalty anymore, it was strategy. For a long time, I thought she just didn't want to pick sides. But this was choosing. She chose the man who once forgot my high school graduation, but remembered the date his favourite team won the Super Bowl in 1984. I didn't get mad. I didn't cry. I opened a second folder, labelled back burner. Inside, a deed. 7 years ago, I bought a small piece of land just outside the town where my dad grew up. It used to belong to my grandfather. My dad sold it when he was in a financial pinch, said he regretted it more than anything. Well, I bought it back. Quietly, it sat there, untouched, just grass and memories. Until now. I called the county office, asked for survey flags and markers, told them I wanted to start developing it. They said as long as I wasn't cutting into someone else's property line, no big deal. Perfect. When I got back to the kitchen, Ellie was still pacing. "I'm not going to fight him," I said. She looked up, confused. "What do you mean? I'm going to dismantle him, quietly, bit by bit, like termites in a foundation." She hesitated. "What if he pushes back harder?" I smiled. "That's the plan." 3 days later, he showed up at my place. Didn't call, didn't text. Just parked behind the SUV like it was still his. Walked up in his golf gear like he was about to give a TED talk on arrogance, and rang the bell. I opened the door, mostly because I wanted to see what lie he'd lead with. "You think you're clever," he said, not even pretending to be calm. "Heard from a few people. Sounds like you've been digging." I didn't say anything, "But you don't want to go down this road, Ethan. Trust me. You don't want to go against your own blood." Still nothing. Just watched him unravel. "If you do," he leaned in. "You better hope you've got nothing to hide." There it was, the bluff, the old school, puffed chest power move. Used to work on me. Used to make me feel like a kid again, like I was 2 minutes away from being grounded or told I'd never amount to anything. This time, I let the silence hang in the air, just long enough to make him wonder what I knew. He didn't know I'd already sent the first wave. Not to the cops, but to his world. Emails to former partners, state boards, anyone who ever shook his hand and smiled politely while wondering how the hell he got away with so much for so long. And now? Now, they had proof, or at least enough breadcrumbs to follow. That same afternoon, I got a message from Mark, his ex-business partner, the one Dad burned years ago. He just called me. Mark wrote, screaming, "You weren't lying. He's panicking. Good. But I wasn't done. Remember the land? The one he used to fantasize about turning into a cabin, a legacy for the family. Yeah. I ordered a shipping container, 40 feet long, industrial orange, the kind you can see from a mile away. Had it dropped right in front of the private road that leads to his old vacation property, right where his old gravel driveway meets the public easement. Turns out he never actually owned that part of the access road. Technically, I do now. A friend who lives nearby sent me a picture, him standing in front of it, arms out, yelling at a local deputy like the land was stolen from him. The deputy calmly pointing to the plat map. No, sir, that land belongs to your son, the irony. Chef's kiss. But the part that hit the hardest? Ellie called later that night. She'd gone to confront Mum. I thought she'd deny it, she said. Cry. Apologise. Something. She didn't. No tears. No regret. Just this icy line. Ethan always needed limits. We knew he'd act out eventually. Like all the gaslighting, the emotional distance, the snide remarks that was just parenting. That was them doing their job. And me? I was the problem all along. Then she said, I found something. What is it? A letter. In Mum's closet. From Dad. Addressed to no one. But it's about you. She paused. The first line reads, I never wanted a son. I didn't ask Ellie to read the whole letter. I didn't need to. Just hearing that first line, I never wanted a son, was enough to suck the air out of the room. For years, I thought maybe he just didn't know how to show love. Maybe I had to earn it. Achieve more. Be less me. But now I saw it for what it was. He never planned for me to be anything but his shadow. The moment I grew into my own name, I became the threat. I hung up and just sat there. Quiet, not mad, not broken, just still, like my body finally caught up with what my mind had been trying to say for years. He never wanted me to win. He just wanted me to stay small. So I did what I should have done a long time ago. I opened the folder I called Bridge. Inside, the full package. Screenshots of fake customer accounts he created to inflate his business numbers. Audio clips him bragging at a barbecue about skimming profits off client escrow accounts. Even a forwarded message from Mum, sending him private records about my business finances. And I added one last file, a scan of that letter, not annotated, not framed in context, just raw, just real. Subject line, for the record. I sent it to everyone who ever played a role in his story, the licensing board, the IRS tip line, former co-workers, even the country club he worshipped, like it was church. Didn't write a single word beyond that. I didn't want to convince anyone. I just wanted them to see what I'd seen all my life without the mask. An hour later, my phone started buzzing. Uncle Darren, Jesus, Ethan, is this real? Aunt Marie, I always knew something wasn't right with him. Ellie didn't call. She just sent a period, a single dot. That was enough. The next morning, Mark showed up at my place. Same guy Dad had screwed out of a partnership deal a decade ago. He handed me an envelope. Filed it, he said. Inside was a notarized complaint to the State Board Formal. Detailed, brutal. Witness statements, emails, financial records, everything. Mark had been sitting on it for years, apparently. He was just waiting for a reason. You lit the match, he said. I figured I'd bring the gasoline. Before he left, he looked at me and said, You know he's going to keep coming, right? I nodded. Let him. I went out to the land that afternoon. The container was still there. Bright, industrial orange, blocking the only road to his once prized vacation property. Not a single nail in it, not $1 worth of development, but it was mine. And it meant something. I walked around it, slow and quiet, then opened the doors. Empty steel, echoing with every footstep, cold, clean. I had a new idea for it now. Not storage, not a blockade, a memorial. I applied for permits to turn the land into a quiet garden. A bench, a few trees, native plants. A place to reflect, a place where no one could rewrite the story. It wasn't for him, it was for me. 3 weeks later, I got an envelope in the mail. Legal formatting. No return address. Cease and desist. Accusing me of defamation. Emotional damage. Slander. I read it 3 times and just shook my head. Still playing the victim, I handed it to my lawyer. She laughed, flipped through it and said, "If he tries to take this to court, he'll bury himself." I told her to file a polite response. I haven't heard from him since. But Ellie called again. "You need to check your inbox," she said. It was a scanned letter, handwritten, not from him, from Mum. The opening line, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was protecting the family. She said she never hated me, just thought silence was easier. She also said something strange. She claimed she didn't write that letter, the one that started "I never wanted a son." Said she knew about it, but it wasn't hers, and it wasn't Dad's either. That didn't make sense. Until Ellie told me something even worse. Uncle Jared heard him talking about it. Years ago, said he wrote it himself, pretended it was old, just in case you ever got out of line. To make you look unstable, I sat back, let that settle in. He faked the letter, faked the bitterness, faked the paper trail just to control the narrative, just to have a weapon in case his story ever started slipping. He knew exactly what that line would do to me. And for a second, it worked, but not anymore. So I went back to that garden plot, watched the light hit the gravel, listened to the wind in the trees, felt the silence, not the heavy, guilty kind, the clear kind, the kind that means something ended, the containers coming down next spring, replacing it with something soft, something green, something that grows. The SUV, I donated it to a youth foundation. Let them raffle it off for scholarships. He doesn't know that. Doesn't matter. I don't need to win anymore. I just need peace. As for my name, my work, my story, I'm rebuilding it with no shadows behind me. Because I've learned something. Some people don't love you, they love the version of you they can control. And the second you step out of that box, they call you the enemy. Let them throw stones. Let them lie. Let them rage. I've got roots now, and nothing they say can dig those up.